Good morning. I'm Savannah Sellers. Thanks for joining me on the day before Friday. Joe's off this morning. We're going to get started with that impeachment showdown on Capitol Hill. The Senate quickly dismissed 2 articles of impeachment against Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, brought by House Republicans over his handling of the U.S. border. Senate Republicans slammed the upper chamber's decision not to have a trial.
Are we about to set a precedent that the allegation of a felony is not a high crime and misdemeanor?
That is not an appropriate parliamentary inquiry.
You don't have to be Mensa material to know that it's not only a high crime and misdemeanor, it is a felony.
For more, we are joined by NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Ali Vitale. Ali, good morning. So walk us through what happened on those impeachment votes. Tell us more.
It was a little bit wild there last afternoon, Savannah, because what we saw on the Senate floor is the Senate do what it was always going to do, which is dispense with these articles of impeachment. It was just the question of how they ultimately ended up doing that. Senator Chuck Schumer really kicking down the 2 legs of this chair, first going after the first article of impeachment, which is willful and systemic refusal to comply with the law. Schumer arguing that that was not constitutional. His colleagues, all Democrats and 1 Republican who voted present, agreeing with him. That toppled Article 1. And then Article 2 went down in the same fashion. What took a while was the Republicans trying to make various motions to adjourn or prolong this. Ultimately, those efforts failed, and it left both leaders of the Senate on the Republican and Democratic side warning of the precedent that this would set for 2 very different reasons. Watch.
To validate this gross abuse by the House would be a grave mistake and could set a dangerous precedent for the future.
This process must not be abused. It must not be short-circuited. History will not judge this moment well.
So certainly a lot of talk about precedent there. Of course, this was a really rare moment in the first place. The first time a cabinet secretary was impeached in about 150 years. The Senate doing, again, what we expected them to, which is motioning to dismiss this.
Absolutely. Ali, let's talk about another issue going on in the House. House Speaker Johnson's plans for foreign aid. He's facing a divided party, including members that want to oust him from his job. Johnson told members that they should expect to vote on separate aid bills for Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan this weekend. A little confusing since Johnson himself had voted against Ukraine funding before he took the gavel 6 months ago. So what changed, and what is it going to take for this aid to pass? What do you expect to happen?
Namely, his title, Savannah. He is no longer just Congressman Mike Johnson. He is Speaker Mike Johnson. And I do think that that's a large part of what we're seeing here, especially as the majority of this House Republican conference does want to see the Congress push forward on this package of foreign aid. Now, it's a different fashion of doing it. Initially, the Senate had passed a supplemental aid package weeks ago that had all of these variety of aid pieces in it. Now, what Speaker Johnson is doing is basically just breaking them up. You get an up or down vote on Ukraine aid, you get an up or down vote on Israel aid, an up or down vote on Indo-Pacific aid. And then there's this fourth package that includes a lot of Republican priorities on combating foreign adversaries. There's things in there that Democrats like. I was talking to one congressman this morning on Way Too Early who said he loved the idea of how TikTok was being included in that. But then, of course, Democrats are also skeptical about whatever border provision is included in that. They're reading it very closely, but by and large, the expectation is that this will pass in bipartisan fashion. Here's something important to remember, though. Even though the plan is for up or down votes on all of these various aid pieces, they have to first get on to the actual business of voting for those. And in order to do that on the House floor, you have to vote for the rule. The rule is usually something that the majority party does by itself. That is not what we expect to happen today, and that could endanger Mike Johnson's job.
Yeah, let's talk more about the potential danger that his job is in. So actually, we understand in an effort to shore up support, Johnson met with former President Trump last week in Florida. Could that protect his job? And do Democrats want to work with Johnson, or in an election year, would they like to see more infighting within the Republican Party? Like, is this a good thing or a bad thing for Democrats? How does this play out?
First, on the Trump of it all, I think that what we saw between the speaker and the former president was more of a side hug than a full embrace. And it's not clear that it's done anything to dissuade Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is not just a chief ally of the former president, but right now the chief antagonist of the Speaker of the House. She said she's going to wait until after the foreign aid package to push any kind of motion to vacate. That means that today is a really important day in Congress, but certainly over the weekend as well. It's going to be difficult for people like us, Savannah, who are now going to have to compete with watching Congress and also listening to Taylor Swift's new album. I am just really stressed.
I was just waiting to say to you, happy new Taylor Swift album day, since I know you celebrate and observe. I love it. Ali Vitale covering so much, and in preparation for this album, it really is something. We appreciate it, Ali. Good to see you. Let's turn now to the House probe into allegations of anti-Semitism on college campuses. The president of Columbia University was the latest college official to testify before the Republican-led Committee on Education and the Workforce. NBC News senior Capitol Hill correspondent Garrett Haake has more.
New York's Columbia University, again a flashpoint in the rise in anti-Semitism on college campuses. As pro-Palestinian protests continue across the country and Jewish students report being targeted or feeling unsafe.
I feel a tremendous amount of hostility towards me.
Columbia's leadership testifying before a House committee investigating its response to recent incidents of anti-Semitism. President Manoush Shafik says that's included curtailing access to campus and stiffening penalties for unapproved protests.
Anti-Semitism has no place on our campus, and I am personally committed to doing everything I can to confront it directly.
Administrators pressed to respond to some of the most appalling examples of anti-Semitism.
Does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Columbia's code of conduct? Mr. Greenwald.
Yes, it does.
Ms. Shipman.
Yes, it does.
Dr. Shafik.
Yes, it does.
Columbia's leaders clearly prepared after the University of Pennsylvania and Harvard's presidents stumbled over the same line of questioning last year, ultimately resigning their posts.
That calling for the genocide of Jews violates Harvard Code of Conduct, correct?
Again, it depends on the context.
It does not depend on the context. The answer is yes, and this is why you should resign.
Some questioning focused on work and commentary of certain faculty members.
The support of terrorism is acceptable if you're a Columbia professor?
Not at all.
Some Democrats criticized the Republican-led committee, noting they've now held 3 hearings on anti-Semitism on college campuses and none on bills designed to combat the problem.
All right, Garrett Haake, thank you so much. Well, former President Donald Trump is due back in a Manhattan courtroom this morning as jury selection resumes in his criminal hush money trial after an off day yesterday. So far, 7 jurors have been selected to participate in the trial. The case involves an alleged payment made to hide an alleged sexual encounter with adult film star Stormy Daniels in the run-up to the 2016 election. Now, Mr. Trump denies the relationship and any wrongdoing. NBC News national correspondent Yasmin Vasugian is outside the courthouse for us this morning. Yasmin, good morning. So as I just said a second ago, yesterday was an off day for the trial, but we did still hear from Mr. Trump. He had some things to say about the jury selection process on social media. Tell us what his objection was here.
It was about the striking process. So essentially, when you go through jury selection, which we talked about just the other day, you go through this process of potential jurors reading off the 42 questions that they answered as they were awaiting to get called into the jury room. And then they go through a strike process, both the defense and the prosecution. And there are peremptory strikes, which essentially means you can literally just strike for whatever reason. And there's causal strikes, right? You have to bring in the evidence as to why you believe this jury will not be appropriate to serve in this trial. And then essentially Judge Juan Merchan has the final say in that. The former president on Twitter yesterday essentially said, well, I thought I got unlimited strikes, and it turns out we only get 10 each, which he's right about, by the way. So each side, as I mentioned, only getting 10 each. They can get as many strikes as they want when it comes to those causal strikes. The issue is the final say, as I said already, comes down to Judge Juan Merchan. And I will say, as we saw on Tuesday, and I think we're going to see this again, the judge wants to move this thing ahead, right? He wants to get this jury sacked and seated and ready to go. I mean, we're looking at opening arguments beginning possibly on Monday. I think essentially when we first started, we thought this process was going to take possibly 2 weeks, but now we're looking at opening arguments starting on Monday with the speed in which this whole thing is moving.
Yasmin, a court filing yesterday revealed what prosecutors would plan to ask Mr. Trump if he did decide to testify in this trial, which is a big question here. What are we learning there, and what do we think the chances are we'll see that?
So essentially what they're establishing and what they want to establish, they did this for this thing called the Sandoval hearing. So what that means is the prosecution presents the evidence that they would show if, in fact, Donald J. Trump, the former president of the United States, took the stand. Right. So they do this so that the former president, along with his defense team, can make an educated decision about whether or not he wants to testify. Right. And it looks as if it's just 3 pages, this filing, in preparation for the Sandoval hearing. They talk about an establishment of pattern. They talk about the conviction with the E. Jean Carroll case being held liable for sexual assault. They talk about the conviction when it comes to the Trump Corporation, when it comes to the Trump Payroll Corporation as well. The violation of the gag order in the Judge Engoron case with the Trump civil fraud trial. So they are establishing a pattern here with that filing, some of which they will bring to the trial if, in fact, the former president, Savannah, takes a stand.
All right, Yasmin, thank you so much. Well, this morning, more than 20 million people from Texas to Indiana are facing the threat of dangerous storms. Parts of the Midwest are already reeling from heavy rain, wind, and the nearly 24 tornadoes that tore through communities on Tuesday. In Ohio, thousands of people were left without power after those storms brought down trees, power lines, peeled off roofs of homes, and even flipped over cars. Our storm coverage this morning is going to bring us Angie Lassman with the latest system placing more than 20 million people stretching from Texas to Indiana at risk for impact. She's going to give us the latest. Hey, Angie, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Savannah. We've already seen quite an active morning across the midsection of our country with severe thunderstorm watches that were issued earlier but have since expired. But it's no surprise we saw that earlier. We had some strong lines of thunderstorms working across portions of Kansas and Missouri, but a whole lot of rain, even north of that, up into parts of Iowa, Nebraska. We've even got a little bit of snow falling in that region, and this is going to continue to work its way east. But yes, we are concerned once again with some of those stronger storms, potentially severe storms, packing a punch with all of the hazards on the table right now. We've got 26 million people at risk through the day today. This risk will likely last through the evening hours after sunset as well. The bullseye for the best chance of some of those stronger storms, St. Louis, Paducah, but notice from Indianapolis all the way down into Texas, we've got Dallas and Waco included in that. We could see some of these stronger storms. Again, the hail, the wind gusts up to 60 miles per hour, all possible, along with a couple of tornadoes through today. Meanwhile, as we look ahead to tomorrow, the severe risk will diminish. It won't be zero, but we're not so much going to look at that to be the most impactful thing for our end of our work week and into our weekend. Instead, we start to see a new storm system developing right along this kind of stationary front that's hanging out in the southern tier of the country. That is the spot that we're going to see the greatest potential for some heavy rain as we go through the next 3 days, Friday through Saturday, potentially Sunday, and even into Monday in some spots. But that rain is going to be from Texas all the way into the Carolinas. As we get through your Sunday, you can see the system's finally on the move, but still dealing with that heavy rain. We're going to eventually see it move off the coast, but we'll continue to see some of that rain left and packing a punch for us for our weekend plans. The flooding concern will be there, specifically places like Dallas, San Angelo, San Antonio, Waco. You're going to see the greatest chance of that flash flooding concern, but all the way from Texas up into the Carolinas, again, where we'll see the prolonged periods of some heavy rain over multiple days, we'll have that potential for some flooding. Here's the totals that we're looking at. Again, same spot with the flash flooding risk elevated. That's going to be Dallas. Places like that could see 1.5 inches, maybe some isolated spots up to 2 inches. But from the Carolinas to Texas, we've got widespread areas that will see over 1/2 inch up to 1 inch. So something to note, specifically Saturday to Monday. Now, let's go through the weekend because, of course, it's the most important time of the week. And we've got Friday for most of the country. Actually looks pretty sunny. I mentioned some of those showers that we'll see across parts of the east. It'll be quite warm across Florida, but otherwise lots of sunshine and some mild conditions for the middle of the country. Out west, we've got 70s on tap for Southern California and plenty of sunshine. We stick with that forecast for our folks there for Saturday, but there's that heavy rain that I mentioned across the southern tier of the country for your Saturday plans. It will unfortunately cool down also for our friends across the Midwest. You're going to see temperatures back to the 40s, back to the 50s after dealing with 60s, 70s. Some spots across parts of the east were into the 80s, close to the 90s over the past week or so. We're going to see different story start to settle in here for Saturday. It'll be a little bit milder by Sunday, but those stormy conditions will stick with us across the south all the way through our weekend plans.
And you were right. I needed an umbrella, and I didn't have it.
Did you have a hood at least? No.
Yeah, no. Angie, thank you so much.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.